I have written a lot of stories, some that I'm very proud of and would love to return to and add more to or rewrite, others that I'm not so proud of that I feel like were kind of wasted ideas or potential lost. But there is one story that I've written, or failed to finish, that I can never go back to. I just can't finish it. As much as I've tried to many times to return to it, rethink it, back up and redraft it, everything about it just can't work. Not because I don't like it. In fact, to be perfectly honest, it was an idea, a kind of a pet baby of mine that I really, really wanted to push forward. I really wanted to see this explode into something really creative. I wanted to dive into all kinds of story elements that I'd never seen before, but there were several things that ruined the story for me. It is the story that broke me. Some of you know what it is if you know my writing career. Others of you may not know, so I'll go ahead and tell you. It is a story called Metamorphosis. The setup couldn't be any more simple. You have this character named Chase, who is a sophomore in high school. He's pretty unpopular, at least in his own mind. He sees himself as not very well liked by the rest of the student body because he's built very powerfully. He is starting on the football team for the school. He's pretty strong, pretty big, but he's also very shy, so he doesn't know how to approach people very well. Because of that, it makes other people cautious around him and nervous and unsure of how to treat him. So he always feels like he's not very well liked at school. Add to that his mother and father are both being very tense with each other and arguing a lot, and they don't seem to be giving him much of the time of day, and it hurts. So he wishes that there could be a way to fix that he could understand better what it takes for people to like him, understand what it would take to fix his family relationship, all that fun stuff. The next morning, after making this wish, he wakes up as a girl, a female. No idea why, no idea what caused it. His parents aren't sure, and they're scared for him, so they're doing their best to hide him. They're trying their best to also find out what could have caused it. Along the way, they learn more and more about decisions that were made by the parents that were less than ideal, a dark secret about Chase's mother that actually threatens the family staying together entirely, and Chase, sneaking into school in the guise of his own cousin, learns actually how people really did see him. I wanted to use this story for a lot of things. For one thing, I wanted to use it as a character study. Kind of this idea of how what we view in ourselves doesn't always match up with how other people view us. About how the actions we take in our day-to-day life seem a certain way to us, but to everyone around us, they may take a different kind of context. For example, there's a bit where Chase sneaks into the school as his, female cousin, and he sees someone from the football team who's acting like a punk and being very flirtatious. Now, at the time, he didn't do or say anything about it. He didn't want to. But here, he feels a little bit accosted. He feels a little bit threatened because he himself is now female. So he feels like this is almost an affront on him, so he decides to speak up for it, which gets him into some trouble. But a couple of the people in the school point out that they wish that Chase could be back because Chase was bigger than this guy, and even though he never said anything, it was clear he didn't like it. They liked that about him. There were aspects to the story where I tried to involve different things that Chase didn't realize were happening in his life that showed him more about himself, and he couldn't realize that until he stepped out of his own comfort zone. He realizes more things about his own family as well, about how his mother, who had had a very terrible miscarriage, which cost her the daughter she always wanted. She is now trying to project some of that desire for a daughter onto Chase now that she almost sees this as the chance to make up for that miscarriage, which is making Chase feel all kinds of guilty. There's lots of areas that I wanted to explore with the story. I had a lot of plans to make this a creative dive into the human psyche, into gender roles, into the idea behind what makes a person popular, what doesn't make them popular, how people view us, how our actions can impact our families, how families can impact us, the ideas of living in a two-parent household versus a one-parent household, the fear of divorce, the fear of running away, there's just so much that I wanted to dive into this story. I had huge plans to go very far with this. But the truth was that in the end, spoilers, why am I even giving you spoilers? I'm never going to finish it. Point is, I was going to end it with him turning back, taking all of these things that he's learned to try to fix his family, fix his social life, actually manage to restore the life that he always wanted. I know, happy, sappy ending, I get it. But the point wasn't the ending. The point for me was the exploration of these different aspects of character that I really wanted to dive into. It was an early story for me, and I was working on it with a friend of mine at the time named Mika, who was kind of on board with the project. She drew a lot of the images that you're seeing on the screen. She had drawn them all for different scenes in the story. There were a lot of ideas, and she even recommended a few, like the idea of Chase's mother being an elementary school teacher, so she takes Chase with her to the elementary school because they don't want her out of their sight, so again, pretends that she's her own cousin. And from that, she gets to see what her mom does for a living, like what kind of things that she has to deal with, and also learns, again, a few things about her mom from that experience. But that was something that Mika came up with. And so it was a great passion project between us to try to create this. But along the way, 3 things happened that ruined this story. The first one that ruined it was I did not realize at the time that gender transformation medium, while in my opinion, a creative outlet for storytelling, is also seen as a fetish by many. For me, the first thing that I ever saw that was really gender transformation related would be Ranma 1/2, which revolves around a young man who turns into a girl when he gets splashed with cold water and turns back with warm water, and how he uses that to his advantage in not only fights, but also in his own social life. And I thought there's a lot that could be done with that outside of just comedy. You could do a lot of interesting development through that. The problem was, because that didn't really go into the fetish side of things, I didn't realize that it was until people hit the comment section each time I released a chapter to talk about how it really suited them, and that kind of unnerved me in a big way. The second problem was that because people got their jollies from this, they often made suggestions, recommendations, demands, and expectations about what they wanted to see from the story, including but not limited to the potential that Chase may become interested in a male character, that she may become lesbian for a female character, that he will become pregnant at some point, that he will long to stay this way, that there will be sex scenes, and on and on and on and on. And I was very unnerved by all this. I was upset. I was going, this isn't what I wanted for the story at all. And I kept trying to tell people, this isn't where the story's going. I don't want to make this kind of story that you're creating it to be. This is supposed to be something better than that. And I became so worried that people would keep following this story and expecting these things that I eventually started deliberately making edits to the story so that I could clearly make it out that this is not what I want to do. And I ended up sabotaging the story. I had left it vague and ambiguous about what caused the change. But to make people realize that he would turn back and that he wasn't going to stay this way, I gave away a very shitty reason why he transformed, and it ruined the story there and after. It just killed the story. I couldn't stand how people were just ruining this idea that I had. Just really through the, I mean, I know that some of them probably meant well, and they might have misinterpreted my intentions when writing the story, but the point was, because I was trying so hard to deliberately knock down these wants, I ended up sabotaging the story, which I never was able to fully fix. I made a few attempts to get back into the realm of character, but by that point, it was already ruined. And then the third thing that killed it was Mika and I lost touch. She went her own way, and I went mine. And without her, diligence and desire to work on the story with me, my desire to work on it petered out as well. I am lucky that I even finished Monster Club, which was another project that she and I started together. I just couldn't finish Metamorphosis, though. The ways that I'd messed it up and the fact that she wasn't around, all of it just kind of, it killed it for me. Ever since, I tried to work on other stories with the chance that I could recreate what I was trying to do with Metamorphosis. Some of them with gender transformation, some of them without, like Upon the Stars, and a few others were trials and errors to try to recreate that plan, that dream of mine, but none of them ever saw water. Metamorphosis was probably the only one that really I thought could possibly make it, but it didn't. The story broke me because I ruined the story, but it taught me some valuable lessons about writing. One of the first things it taught me is that you can't let audience demands or expectations dictate what you write. Because I was so upset about the way people were expecting the story to be, it dictated how I wrote the story, and thus it ruined everything I was trying to create, which destroyed a potentially wonderful story. 2, it taught me that you should never go down the route of transformation unless you have a clear-cut idea of not only how the transformation takes place, but also how it can be undone if you want it undone. And the reason I say that is because I left it vague because I didn't have an answer. I didn't think there needed to be an answer. I thought it was just going to be this vague thing, and then when he turns back again, it is all vague. You could leave it up to audience interpretation. And there's a lot of ways that audience interpretation can be a very useful tool to help create an outcome that you want to see. I don't think, like, there's some stories that I've written. I know that I'm kind of mumbling and stumbling here, but it's a point that I want to make clear. I think that it's very possible for when you write a story, you can leave things vague without adding a lot of explanation and still make audiences invested. And I thought that I could do the same thing here, but because I myself didn't have any true understanding of what I had done, it meant that I had wrote myself into a corner. So I think it's important that I had some kind of explanation along the way. And 3, I think the biggest thing that I learned from this, it's that for a plot that is character driven, I can't abandon the plot. I needed a very clear start and end. My end was vague. My start was vague. I mean, I had an idea for how I wanted to start, but I didn't have, I wanted to progress it without knowing where I was going to take it in the end. I knew what I wanted for the end, but I didn't know exactly how I was going to build that up. Metamorphosis was the story that broke me. And again, I don't think I'll ever go back and finish it. In fact, I made an announcement saying I didn't plan to. Will I one day try to rewrite it? I doubt it. I don't think so. I don't have much time these days, and I've got so many other projects on my desk, and plus there's not a large demand for me to go back and work on it again. If you want to read it for what it was, you can. I'll leave a link in the description, but I don't know why you would. It's kind of a dead story, and I just hate that it had to die the way it did. I thought that there was a lot of potential for it. Maybe some of you don't agree with that. Maybe some of you thought, Raven, you should have known what you were getting yourself into. And yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I should have been more, upfront and, like realize what I was creating and realize the kind of people that would gravitate towards it. As I've progressed as a writer and delved into new types of writing and storytelling, I've learned a lot more about what people see in writing and how different things that you write can have different impacts on different people. But the reason I tell you about Metamorphosis is because it is one of the larger stories that I've worked on, but it's also one of the only stories that I can truly say I will never go back and finish. Not because I hated it, not because I didn't like it, but because I hated what I did to it. And I hated how it turned out. It is the story that broke me. But anyway, guys, I hope that you enjoyed this story sharing time. A little bit different than my usual type. I'll have another one for you next week, and I will see you in my next video. Take care.